In response to a number of recent fatalities caused by shark incidents, there was a lot of pressure put on the Western Australian government to do something, and as a result their answer was to cull sharks with a drumline program.
In Western Australia, they proposed to put this policy forward in late 2013 that would see 72 beta drumlines off the coast of the country, which would target large sharks and in effect kill them. It was a catch and kill policy.
The way that a drumline works is it's one orange float, and then there's a chain anchored to the bottom of the seabed, and then off that comes another line with a hook down the bottom of it with bait on it, whether that be shark or fish. It was announced as a shark mitigation program, but it was absolutely a shark cull, because even the government acknowledged that the drumlines would bring sharks closer to our coast to kill them.
These sharks that could be feeding kilometres away are actually brought in, and they're attracted in closer to close to the coast. And these drumlines are around the most popular beaches of the areas.
The community rallied. Natalie Banks organised a rally in Cottesloe, and it was incredible to see the public turn out. There was about 3,500 to 4,000 people on the beach rallying for sharks against this drumline program. And not only that, there was rallies around Australia and even a couple overseas.
We were never under the illusion that this campaign was going to be easy. We were up against a very powerful government, economically and politically. They have the influence, they have the power, they have the money. They're an extremely arrogant government. But we have no choice. We have no choice but to take on the Barnett government. No matter how powerful they are, no matter how long this takes, for the alternative is to do nothing. And to do nothing would mean the complete destruction of our world's oceans. But we are here today to make a stand. We are not separate from nature. We either choose to coexist with nature, or we cease to exist as a civilization on this planet.
The public weren't listened to, the opinion polls were completely ignored, the rallies were ignored, the science was ignored, and the government still went ahead with this drumline program and put drumlines in the southwest and off the Perth metro.
Fisheries took on the role of monitoring and organising the drumlines because no other contractor would do so. The government put it out to tender. They had, in the early days, a couple of people interested, but very quickly, under people pressure, they bowed out, and it was left for fisheries, who are normally out there protecting oceans and protecting wildlife, to take on the role of catching and baiting sharks with the drumlines. It's a little bit ironic that their mottos are fish for the future, their motto is to look after the oceans, and on their websites they talk about the important role that sharks have to play. So there they are, with all of this good information about how important sharks are in a healthy ocean. There they are out there baiting and catching them. We went out and we purchased a rib, a reinforced inflatable boat, which became known as Bruce the Rib. The aim of that boat was to be the eyes and ears on the water, was to get out there, monitor fisheries, document, get out into the wider public, not only in WA but worldwide, what was happening off the Western Australian coast, how the Australian government was killing and targeting sharks.
Sea Shepherd is an anti-poaching organisation, and we uphold laws, we don't break laws. And each campaign is different. In the Southern Ocean we go and stop Japan from illegally killing whales. They're breaking federal law and international law. However, off the Western Australian coast, there's been an exemption granted for them to kill protected species. So it makes it very difficult for us to get in and really protect these animals without breaking laws. So we had to work within the boundaries of what was going on.
If we could find enough breaches of the rules and the guidelines that have been laid down by the government for the drumline policy, then perhaps we could stop legally or through pressure the Fisheries Department doing that, or any other operator in the future from wanting to take on the role, knowing that they were being watched.
I think the makers of the film Jaws have a lot to answer for. This perception of that, the sharks are out there and they're stalking us, which is completely wrong. They're out there, they're hunting seals, they're hunting fish. They're not hunting us. Given the millions of people that enter the ocean and marine environments around the world every day, the fact that there's only a handful of fatalities through shark incidents just goes to show that we're not what they're after, and that's the mentality that we need to get to. We're not disconnected from nature. We are connected to nature and we rely on nature every day. Every time there's a shark off the coast, it's labelled as a monster or lurking off the coast. It's just swimming. Newsflash, sharks swim in the ocean. Who would have thought? Well, they've been doing so for 400 million years, keeping our oceans healthy, maintaining the balance. They're the doctors of the oceans.
Sharks are really important for ocean ecosystems and for a healthy ocean ecosystem. Essentially, a healthy ecosystem in the ocean means a healthy ecosystem on land. I mean, we can't live on the planet with a dead ocean or an ocean without its apex predators. The apex predators are so important in keeping that balance within the ocean ecosystems, and we've even been told by the Australian government itself that the presence of sharks in the oceans does make for a healthy ocean ecosystem.
The early morning run when fisheries come out is probably the worst run of the day. The drumlines haven't been looked at since the evening before, and it seems that it's the most likely time for a shark to have been caught overnight. We have seen sharks that have been on the line long enough to have died on the hook and are just picked up dead. It's probably for us the most nerve-wracking of the runs, not knowing is there, isn't there, is it alive, is it dead.
You don't really understand how severe and how cruel the drumlines are until you see it firsthand. When the fisheries boat approaches the drum lines, if a shark is caught and is over 3 metres, that shark will be shot and killed with a powerhead gun. And if it is undersized, the fisheries or shark contractors will attempt to release this shark alive.
When there was a shark on the line, they would pull it alongside. They had to remove the buoys from the shark. They would then have it alongside the boat, and they really then had a decision to make. Is it over 3 metres, in which case the shark is just going to be shot? Or is it under 3 metres, in which case it should be taken on deck and the shark released back into the water in as good shape as possible?
Get him in!
Get it in, it's alive!
When live sharks were brought on board, undersized sharks, fisheries had to irrigate and they had to remove the hook.
They're suffering as this is happening after spending however long on the hooks that they have with this large baited hook throughout their head.
These were undersized sharks that had to be released and should have been released in the best possible health. And we saw, unfortunately, on quite a few occasions, the sharks just sink straight to the bottom. Whether they will actually survive or not, we don't know. Having got a shark alongside and deciding, yes, this one's over 3 metres, we're going to shoot it, they would discharge a power head. It's a pole with a charge on the end. Having killed the shark, they would then bring it on deck, and that was the first time actually that it would be properly measured with a laser measurer. If it was undersized, too late, shark's already dead. The very process of trying to decide whether a shark is 2.9 metres or 3.1 metres is so hit and miss. A shark alongside the boat that has not been on a line very long is still very active. I think it's very, very hard for anyone to judge from 1.5 metres above the waterline how long a shark it actually is. And there's a very real possibility of them getting it wrong. And I'm pretty certain that on several occasions we saw them get it wrong. On one occasion, towards the end of April, a shark was caught on a drum line. It was very, very badly tangled. It was 40 minutes in the water, tangled. How long it had been on the drum line before that, we don't know, but it obviously had been fighting very hard for its life. They obviously decided that it was needed to be shot. They all then disappeared off the deck, leaving this shark that has been fighting for its life, lying alongside the boat, tied by its tail, hooked by its mouth. Another 5 minutes go by, and then they come out, they disappear again. They finally decided they had to shoot it. The awful thing is that having put in 2 bullets into its head, they then spend another 5 minutes looking down over the side, prodding it with a boat hook. Is it alive? Is it not? We're not sure. The cost of this whole ridiculous drumline system is phenomenal. And there they are worrying about one more power charge. If the animal is not dead and you've decided you're already going to kill it properly. Give it another charge. And we saw on a number of other occasions where they'd shot a shark, given it 2 or 3 shots, started to pull it up only to find it still alive and have to put it back in the water at another time to shoot it yet again. It's just completely and utterly unacceptable, especially from a group such as Fisheries, who are supposed to be protecting ocean wildlife, for them to treat an animal that takes 40 minutes to be killed. The stress that thing goes through.
So they've killed it first, 2 bullets to the head, and now they're going to measure it. If now they measure it and it's under 3 metres, well, it's too late for the shark, isn't it? It's just once again the way that the Western Australian fisheries are operating is absolutely shameful. This is the mentality that's really wrong with the world right now, and this is why the destruction of the environment continues to go on, the way we treat nature. It can't go on, it has to stop. They have a 20 knots following Fisheries out after they've just killed this tiger. I don't know how far out they're going to go. Drop it off in 20 plus metres of water. Put a ladder down.
From the time that the fisheries boat arrived at the shark, it was extremely tangled up in the lines. It took well over half an hour for them to untangle it and then kill the shark, bring it up onto deck. It's just such a waste of a life, of a beautiful life.
Pretty upsetting when you see something that has life in it suddenly stop struggling and there's no purpose behind it. I mean, it's almost the worst possible method that they could have employed. No science involved, no references of using methods that promote survivability of the sharks. Apparently the cost is through the roof. From California to London, South Africa, we've got voices everywhere that are in complete protest to this, especially as we're learning about these animals. It's not just Australia's sharks. We don't know where these sharks go. We don't know exactly where they migrate. We could be sharing these sharks.
The main aim of the shark cull drumline program was to catch and kill great whites over 3 metres and also tigers and bulls, but the primary goal was the great white sharks, with the belief that they're the ones responsible for the fatalities. However, they're an IUCN and red listed protected species, so Premier Barnett wrote to the Federal Environment Minister, Greg Hunt, and asked for an exemption to kill protected great white sharks. He wrote to him on the terms that it was national significance, that it was affecting tourism and public safety. So more and more countries around the world are stepping up to protect sharks, creating shark sanctuaries. And yet here off the Western Australian coast, we're doing our utmost to kill sharks. For that to be occurring and the world really shifting towards shark conservation, and to have that here off the Western Australian coast, the culling of sharks, It just goes completely against what the world expects and thinks of Australia. And that's why it's receiving such massive condemnation. You know, people are now going, oh, Western Australia, oh, you guys are the shark cullers over there. You know, we have these animals that are protected and their status is recognised globally. You know, these are migratory species that go through, you know, many oceans and many countries' coasts. And yet here is Australia snubbing their nose at that, you know, international status of a red listed protected species and just going out and target them. So as this whole, you know, drumline program was rolled out, and you know, we were monitoring the media, and we saw that there was a lady who was against the drumline program, who was saying that someone should take the Western Australian government to court. But what was most incredible about this lady was that she was actually the mother of one of the victims of a shark attack, Cull, who died from a great white off Bunker Bay in Western Australia. And you know, we ended up getting to meet Sharon and talk with her, and oh, what an incredible woman.
Surfing was a huge part of Cull's life. If you asked his girlfriend at the time, basically his life revolved around the waves, including when he worked and who he worked for. If it didn't fit in with the surfing schedule, then it wasn't on. It was 4th of September 2011, it was Father's Day, and Cull and his friend were, as usual, on the hunt for the waves and went up to Bunker Bay, up near Cape Naturalist on the Western Australian southwest coast. They were going down to do some bodyboarding, and he was waiting for a wave and just talking to one of the surfers next to him, and a great white came up from below and just grabbed him from, basically the waist down and took him under the water. So injuries were catastrophic, and he was dead before he came back to the surface. So. When we travelled around Australia, and also, you know, whenever we went to the bush on the weekends, camping, etc., Cull learnt from an early age that when you're in a wild environment, things can happen. There are snakes, spiders, cliffs you can fall off, rocks can fall on you, you can lose your footing. There are so many different ways that something bad can happen at any moment. What I tried to teach him as we went through the process of exploring wild environments, sometimes on our own in remote places, was that you understand the risks, you know what to look out for, you understand the best ways to keep you safe, the best ways to deal with the situation if it arises, particularly things like first aid and evacuation. So he learnt all that stuff from an early age. And then you go and enjoy. And that's all you can do, because you can't possibly control everything. But that's part of the thrill of being in a wild environment. If I want a controlled environment, I'll stay at home with my TV on and watch a nature documentary. Part of being in a wild environment is the unpredictability of it. So therefore, you have to accept that you can't control all the risks. And I know for a fact that Cull was well aware of the risks associated with surfing down in the southwest of Western Australia. I mean, there had been a fatality just the year before, and of course on that day, you know, I was on the phone trying to ring Cull, as I guess most people who've got loved ones live down there were, just to make sure he was all right. And so yes, he talked about it, they were aware of it. Was there a certain level of fear? Of course. I think if you're in an environment where that could happen, it would be unrealistic to think there weren't times when you worried about it and thought about it. But I don't think that ever detracted from his love of that area, otherwise he would have moved. The shark threat was there, but it was never something that would have stopped him from going in the water and surfing and doing what he absolutely loved to do. Part of the reason that, as I raised Cull, that I wanted him to really experience nature was because I think it adds so much value to who you are as a person. It does a couple of things. It makes you think about the big picture, and that you don't become absorbed in a very simple way of viewing the world and your role in it. You know, there is something bigger out there, there's something worth protecting. The other thing I think nature provides that a lot of people don't get to experience because they don't go and do it is those moments where something unpredictable happens, and it's fantastic, you know, running into a cassowary in the wild with its 2 babies, or seeing a numbat in the wild, or a bilby, or, you know, being able to sit on a cliff and watch, you know, the whales down in the head of the bight when they've got their calves with them. You know, those sorts of experiences, I think, add value to a child, which they then take those values into their adulthood. And that Cull certainly did. He was, as we were travelling around Australia, if he saw a lizard on the road, we'd have to stop the car and he'd shoo the lizard away. And I said to him one day, you know, why do we have to keep stopping for the lizards? Because you know they're going to come back on. And his response was, because, well, I kept him safe for now. And if that's a lesson that he learnt from being in that environment, that's a good lesson, because you can't always think about the big picture. Sometimes you just have to go, I need to protect it for now. And that's a little bit like the shark issue. You know, what's ahead of us in 20, 30 years? If we do something about protecting it now, today, and we did that every day, then the long-term result is going to be far better than we go, you know what? I don't care about the big picture, I just want to be safe when I go to the beach today.
Nowadays it's incredible to see the people out there that have, you know, really putting their own houses on the line to put forth alternatives to the killing of sharks that still keep, you know, our beaches safe.
The Eco Shark Barrier is made out of nylon. It's a rigid structure. There's 13,000 modules that make up the barrier. It's from the sea bed to the surface of the water, returning back to the beach, so it's 100% a safe zone to swim. And the barrier itself is not flexible like a net. You know, it's quite rigid. So basically if anything goes into it, bumps into it, it won't get tangled in it. The main benefit is basically it is a safe and secure place to go swimming without harming any marine life. You know, unlike anything else out there. It's a world first, and it's been trialled for 4 months and it's been super successful. It hasn't had any bycatch, didn't pull apart, didn't break, and couldn't have asked for a better trial. Yeah, well, it is definitely a better alternative than drum lines. Obviously, it won't trap and harm any marine life, where drum lines, they kill just about anything and everything that wants to eat bait. And it's bringing sharks in every day to eat the bait, you know, which is ridiculous. It is their territory. You know, there's no reason to harm them when there are other alternatives out there, such as the Eco Shark Barrier. I've talked to hundreds of people swimming inside the Eco Shark Barrier that wouldn't swim in the ocean where there's a drum line. So it's definitely worked the opposite to what the drum lines have. People like to swim in there, they feel comfortable and safe. Yeah, well, I've tried pitching it to the government and they haven't responded back and don't really care, I don't think. It's unfortunate that that is a real solution, and it's not a very dear solution to shark mitigation and swimmer safety, but you know, you can try and pitch as much as you want, but when the government doesn't want to listen to you or won't respond back to any of your letters, you know, what do?
The other one that the public really like is the Shark Spotters program, which is being used in Cape Town in South Africa for a number of years now. And it's a program that's been initiated by surfers for surfers. They have a flag system where they just say whether it's, you know, good spotting conditions for sharks, poor spotting conditions, and there's people out there with binoculars just simply looking out and seeing if there's sharks in the vicinity. And the amount of times where some days they may have spotted a great white 14 times on that one day and that one break. They notify everyone, people get out of the water, there's an alarm raised. Once the shark's cleared, people go back in the water and surf.
In any situation where you have a risk and you're going to put risk mitigation strategies in, where you are going to try and reduce the risks associated with the problem, you always do a risk assessment. So you go through and you must consider all your options and you say, what are all the potential solutions out there that are available? What are the ones that are currently in place? Let's get professional opinions around that. Now that all takes time, and that can't have been done in the period that they took. It could not have been done properly. And we do know that much of the evidence they already had did not support the drumlines. So the only way that you can understand what they've done is they've ignored the evidence they had available to them based on what solutions were already out there that could work and what the evidence against the use of drumlines and their effectiveness, and still gone down that path anyway. So there didn't seem, from a safety and risk mitigation, there didn't seem a lot of logic around that strategy. So it then asked the questions, why did they choose that one solution when we know there are at least 6 or 7 other far more sophisticated and better solutions that they could have put in place?
In the southwest of WA, it's a private contractor. He has his own vessel, a much smaller vessel than the Fisheries vessel. His name is Graham, and he and a decky lay the drum lines. They're responsible every day for checking them.
Graham Payton was being paid $6,000 a day. For the 3-month trial, he would pull in over $600,000 to kill sharks. And the way that he was operating was absolutely, cruel, barbaric, on so many levels. He'd often have a shark on the end of a drum line and pull it up out of the water and onto his boat. And by the time he had pulled that shark onto his boat, the hook had gone right through the top of the shark's head. And then he was basically getting a knife and hacking through the shark's head to remove the hook and then jumping it back in the ocean. These so-called alive release statistics, here's another one that simply would not have survived. In the end, he moved to not bringing the sharks on the boat, but having a long pole with a knife taped to the end of it, reaching over the side of the boat and hacking through the shark's head to release the hook.
The sharks that I saw released alive had no chance of surviving whatsoever.
Then he had a little, 22 caliber rifle, and he would bring along oversized sharks, so 3 meters plus, and sometimes he would be shooting them up to 4 times over, 10, 20 minutes before these sharks are dead. It was just cruel and barbaric in every way that he acted.
The government has laid down guidelines as to how the drumline policy should be implemented. Graham doesn't have the means to implement this policy properly. He's paid a huge amount of money, but doesn't have those tools available to him.
Our opinion is, the drumline shouldn't be in first place. Graham shouldn't have been operating down there, or that he should have been pulled off and someone should have been on there that could train him or observe and give him some sort of knowledge, someone that knew what they were doing. It was clear that he was incompetent to do the job. On every level, from implementation, design, execution, the way this whole drumline program is being carried out has been absolutely poor on every level. We expect better from our government, and not, this is world's worst practice what's going on here, not world's best. and that's what we should be moving towards. The problem is there's no cruelty laws for sharks, and so as a result they were treated with the utmost disrespect on every level.
In the middle of the campaign, an undersized shark was caught on the drumline. It was taken on board, the hook was removed, and it was released. The shark, as it hit the water, immediately started to sink, roll over and sink to the bottom. It was obviously in very, very poor state. 2 people immediately swam to its aid and brought it back to the surface. I watched on with absolute fascination. This is one of the most incredible things I'd seen. People actually holding the shark round its mouth, holding it at the surface. If they let it go, it would immediately start sinking. And they started to swim and swim and swim. It was incredible. They had swum that shark for almost an hour and a half. And during that last half hour, it gained strength and it picked up its energy and it started to swim stronger and stronger. As it gained strength, it was able to move away and then finally to swim off on its own after an hour and a half. It was incredible. It just shows that fisheries are releasing sharks that are not surviving, and yet they could survive with some help. We had crews on board who were capable, able and willing to swim a tiger shark back to life. Another day that really stood out during the campaign was Anzac Day. Fisheries caught a tiger shark on one of the lines.
When we first jumped into the water and approached the tiger shark, which was struggling on the line, on the drum line, it was a sense of complete awe at this amazing animal, this huge shark that I've always wanted to see out in the wild. It was extremely sad that this was the first time that I'd seen a tiger shark was struggling, and it was pretty devastating, really. We could actually see that it had swallowed the drumline hook, so it was well and truly within its stomach. It was really confronting to see it, and just knowing how much suffering that this animal was going through itself, to know that we would be one of the last people to ever see this animal alive. It was really sad to see that this is what the Australian government, wanted to do with these animals. Fisheries came over, they grabbed the shark and basically put it on the side of the boat. They were measuring it, and they quickly grabbed the powerhead gun and decided that it was a shark that was over 3 meters, and that they decided to destroy the shark. And then it took 4 shots to the head for this animal to die.
We followed it offshore, a long way offshore, where they dumped it. We had crew on board who were able to dive onto the bottom of the ocean at that point.
We did see a huge amount of blood coming out from the gunshot wounds, and we could also see that these gunshot wounds were in different areas of the head. They seemed to be kind of all over the head of the shark. The footage that we got just proved that, you know, it's unacceptable to kill a shark in this way. To take 4 shots to the head for this shark to die is, you know, from seeing it firsthand, you know, it shouldn't be allowed anywhere in the world, and it wouldn't have, you know, been acceptable on land, and it shouldn't be acceptable whatsoever in the oceans.